Hi there, this is Pam. Today I am going to share a little bit about dye ink markers. I'm not going to be coloring anything. I just want to do a comparison because lately I have been trying to find paper that will work with dye ink markers. There's lots of different brands out there and there's lots of different papers out there to use, and I've been stamping and coloring and all that for quite a few years, and the dye ink markers kind of just don't get used much in my stamping and paper crafts. I do use them to color actually on stamps before I stamp them, but as far as using them as a coloring medium, I really pretty much quit because I could never find any paper that really works well. So I found some videos on YouTube, of course, this channel, my favorite information source, on this paper that will work with dye ink markers and you can blend them out. So the paper is from Strathmore and it's their Bristol Smooth Surface. Now, when I tried to find some online, when I ordered a couple different brands of markers, the only website that had any at all, everybody was sold out for some reason, was blitsy.com, and they only had the ATC size, which is what these are. So this is the little tiny, it's so small, but it works for me to practice on. They do carry a big, I think it's a 8.5 by 11 or even 9 by 12 paper pad. So I definitely will be getting that one of these days, but this is perfect for me to practice on. But yes, it's the Strathmore Bristol Smooth Surface. This is not for alcohol markers. It will not work. It doesn't have the right surface. It'll bleed out. This obviously has other different applications that you can use, but for dye ink markers, it's great. And brands of dye ink markers, okay? My collection, actually, not really collection, but this was the first markers that I had when I started paper crafting, and that's been probably over 8 years ago, were these rose art markers. I mean, I didn't use them, like I said, for coloring anything. I think I mostly just used them on my stamps, or to write something, to journal, because the tip is like kind of rounded, and I mean they're fine to start with. And I actually gave them to my son to use after I started getting these markers. This was the next marker. All of my projects that I share on my blog or here on YouTube uses Stampin' Up! Cardstock. That's the only stuff I buy. I have every color that they make in their catalog, and I don't have every marker now. They quit selling their markers individually, so I don't have them all. But this was my next marker adventure, these right here. And I never could get them to blend correctly. Now, I've been using Stampin' Up's white, Whisper White cardstock, and it's great for alcohol markers. It's perfect. But for the dye ink blending with the blending tool, now this is their blenders. They look pretty much just like any other blender. This is a double-ended. This one has the same tip on each end. Get a little closer there, you can see. Same kind of fluid in there as any other brand. But the paper pilled. It would like get too wet and then it would pill up. And that just annoyed me. So I quit trying to color with those. Like I said, until now. So the other, well, I think it was last week, I watched a video using this Bristol paper. Obviously it wasn't these little tiny pieces, but it was the same stuff. And I can't remember exactly what markers that she was using. And then Jennifer McGuire showed these Tombow markers. So of course, what did I buy? The Tombow ones, because yes, it blended on that Bristol paper. So let me get them kind of together here. These are from Tombow. They do not have a name on them. I guess that little number is their name. but this is the portrait set, and I have the actual package. This is what they look like. It kind of won't fit in there. But it's a dual brush end, similar to the Stampin' Up! Ones. There's a brush nib. Let me get the black one so you can see it. It has a nice, big, wide brush nib. And then, of course, just like the Stampin' Up! Ones, it has, well, this one's even wider. The Stampin' Up! One's more for, like, writing. This one's kind of a rounder, a little rounder tip. But this is done right here with those Tombow markers and the blender pen. This image is from La La Land Crafts, and I'm trying to find her package. I think she's a retired one. Here she is, retired Marcy. I do believe she's retired. Oh, that's the stamp. And to stamp it with, this is the black ink that I used. My favorite things. It's a hybrid. It does not bleed. But let me pick that up. This one was colored, her hair and her face. I obviously didn't color all of it with these Tombow markers. And I think it came out pretty darn good for the blending part. Even the skin tone and her little cheeks and her headband there. Now the hair, I think I did get a little bit too dark. She needs, I think, a little bit more like highlighting on there. But I think it looks great. So I wanted to do another one with different markers, but like I said, the Stampin' Up! Ones, I don't have all their colors. I don't have black. I have one gray that's like almost dried up because it's an old retired one. So the only Stampin' Up! Markers that I used on this one is these two, and they kind of look funny together. One's a current color. I can't even read them. I don't have my glasses on. Rich Razzleberry, which that's, I think, a current color, and this one is not. Orchid Opulence, that's from like a long time ago. But that's her headband. And it doesn't look too bad. The only thing I don't like is that this part is not solid. When I colored that in, I mean, that's what it did. That's what it looked like before I even took the blender pen to it. And of course her hair's blue because I didn't have black. But before I talk about the color, her hair and her face markers, I do want to share the Tombow. Now the Tombow markers that I used on the other one does come with, excuse me, their own blender pen, and honestly, not impressed. The nib on it, you can't see it. That's a little better. The nib on it is already rounded off, and I've only used it like on 5 different things. So, not impressed with that. Stampin' Up! Ones, I've had these for a long time. The nibs are not rounded, they're not frayed out, either end. Yeah, they're a little stained, but they do that on any of these. And like I said, I've had these for years and they've never dried out, so I'm going to be sticking with these blender pens because they work great. The nibs are awesome. So for her hair, what did I use but these really cheapo Rose Art markers? The ones I gave my son. Yes, he doesn't use them anymore because he's kind of growed out of his playing with mommy days in the craft room. But those are the blues that I used on her hair because it didn't have the correct grays and black to do the black hair. But for the cheapo markers, I think that looks awesome on her hair. And even her face. I only used 2 colors on her skin tone and her cheeks there. There's the colors there. Now I bought these, like I said, a long time ago at Joann Fabrics. It was in a big set. I don't know how many are in there. 24 or something like that, different colors. I don't know if they even have names on these, but they just say Rose Art Super Tip Markers Washable. But they work. And look, they blend. I think it blended out just fine. I did get a little tiny bit of pilling right here on her cheek. I think I put too much color down right away. And then when I tried to blend it out, it didn't want to blend anymore. And then it got wet, and then that's just, you're done. When you have dye ink markers, so once it starts pilling, you're kind of done with it. But for anyone who's starting off, I guess I could say, with coloring, now I have alcohol markers. I have all kinds of them. They're Letraset and they're Spectrum, and they're great. But sometimes I want to color with something else other than those, because I'm not an expert. They don't always come out good. So for someone starting off, wanting to try coloring with markers, try these. These are the absolute, probably cheapest ones you can get, and there's probably other brands out there too that are not as expensive as these. Now these are nice, I must say, the Tombow ones. The tips are great. I like the big brush tips compared to those little round nibs on those markers. So if you want to spend a little bit more money, you can get these Tombow ones, and they are dual-ended. It's great. These markers, whether they're expensive ones or the El Cheapo ones, they both color fine and they both blend. You do need a blender pen. Don't use water on this. It's not watercolor paper. But definitely the Strathmore Bristol Smooth Surface. I think it's 100-pound paper. Yes, 100-pound paper is perfect. I wish I would have found this like years ago, but hey, that works. Now, another marker that I did buy at the same time that I bought the Tombow ones were the Distress markers. Because I have the Distress inks, and I have the new Distress Oxide inks, which are awesome. But these are the only colors that I bought in the Distress markers for pretty much basically watercoloring. And I did make her. She is from CC Designs, this stamp. She's called Happy Twyla. She's darling. But she's done on that same Bristol paper and the Distress markers and the blender pen. Now, I didn't get real crazy with the shading on her because, like I said, those are the only colors I have. So her hair is vintage photo and her skin is done in antique linen. So that's another option. They're not as cheap as like something like this, and they do, because they're the Distress ink formula, they blend extremely fast. I don't know if that makes sense to some people, but you can move the color around a lot more with these two than the Distress. For me anyways, not everybody's colors and does the same, but I guess if I practice more at it, I would be a little better, but she's still cute. Using just those few colors of ink markers. So that's all I wanted to share was the dye ink markers. If anyone's interested in wanting to color, please go out and try these inexpensive markers and get the right paper. That makes all the difference, because all these years I've been using that Stampin' Up! Paper and it just wasn't getting it. So I like Stampin' Up's colors and their cardstock and all that, but their paper is not, I can't use it. So that's all I have to share with you today. I hope you got some tips out of this video, and thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.